Hello and welcome to this session on Geography and Environment Questions of Prelims 2020. We all know that there were around 25 to 28 questions from Geography and Environment combined. And so you can easily see that it forms a total of around 25% of the overall questions in UPSC Prelims examination. And so it becomes very important topic for Prelims examination. Let us begin with geography first. Geography is considered to be a very static topic, and it is correct, it is a static topic. But the kind of conceptual clarity which is needed to answer the questions in prelims examination is very high. And that is why in our prelims test series, when we formulate these questions, we don't keep ourselves limited to just NCERTs. We formulate questions from various other textbooks. We formulate these questions to provide you an edge. Let us now move on to the environment section, and there is a change of trend which is clearly visible. Now, instead of focusing on organizations, their mandate, their objectives, members, UPSC is clearly now focusing on conservation. Whether it is conservation of environment, whether it is conservation of agriculture, it is just focusing on these aspects. Apart from that, a lot of questions have come from the map locations. Around 4 questions came from the knowledge of the map entries in Indian portion. And so that is why in our prelims test series, whenever we ask questions, be it national park, tiger reserve, rivers, mountains, glaciers, peaks, the questions are always scattered around these topics to give you a better insight into these map locations. So without wasting even a further second, let us now begin the discussion.
Okay, let's take a very straightforward question from the geography section first. Siachen Glacier is situated to the east of Siachen, east of Leh, north of Gilgit, north of Nubra Valley. Now, many would consider this question to be from the static portion because, after all, we must accept it is the longest glacier in the Karakoram range and the second longest in the world's non-polar areas. Also, it has been quite a flashpoint as far as India and Pakistan's relations are concerned. And so it forms a very important location as far as map entries are concerned in geography. But for year 2020, it became more so important because of the infiltration by Chinese soldiers in various locations in Ladakh region. And so no surprises for guessing that this question was there in our prelims test series as well, where we asked the Siachen Glacier is located near which of the following valleys, and almost the same set of options, and the right answer was Nubra Valley. And again here in UPSC also the right answer is Nubra Valley. But the important question is that if you don't have the right answer in your mind, could you have solved this question in the examination hall given that you know the location of Leh, Ladakh, Aksai Chin and Gilgit? And so the answer is yes. If you are following current affairs very closely, you know that this occupied region of Ladakh is Aksai Chin. And so Siachen Glacier, being a part of India, cannot be in the eastern side of Aksai Chin because that would form the part of China. Similarly, Leh is located over here. Again, it cannot be towards the eastern side of Leh. So option A and B could easily have been rejected in the examination hall itself. And we know that the region Gilgit and Baltistan, which forms the part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, is the northernmost region of India. And anything north of that would form the part of Afghanistan or China and not India. And so it cannot be in the north of Gilgit. And so in that case, even if you did not know about the Nubra Valley, you could have arrived at the right answer.
What are the advantages of fertigation in agriculture? And there are 4 statements written beneath that. Now, fertigation, I must admit, is not something which either you read in your static or even in current affairs. And so when the aspirants first had a look at this particular question, they were taken aback. But after the prelims examination, when we had discussions with our students, we found out that most of them could guess what fertigation would mean. After all, most of the people could make out that fertigation is a combination of 2 terms, fertilizer and irrigation. And so most of the people could understand that it is about mixing fertilizer into the irrigation water itself so that
You don't have to spread the fertilizer through aerial route, and all the nutrients reach to the soil through the water, dripping water itself. And so one of the problem of current irrigation is that you cannot control the alkalinity or the pH of the water, which you can of course in case of fertigation. If you mix some chemicals in the water itself, then of course you can directly take these nutrients to the roots of the plants, and so you can increase the availability of nutrients, and you can also reduce the leaching of chemicals, which is what happens in the traditional irrigation when the fields are flooded with water. And so this extra water, what it does is that it takes the nutrients from the soil to the layers underneath the top layer where it is not available to the plant. So all these three things can be done. But there is another option. Efficient application of rock phosphate and all other phosphatic fertilizer is possible. Now people who are good at chemistry or are from the science background know that phosphates are insoluble in water, and so if you mix the rock phosphates and other phosphatic fertilizer in water, it won't simply dissolve in the water, and so it cannot be applied in the fertigation process. And so statement 2 is incorrect, leading us to the right answer C. Now the question is, the people who have no idea about the insolubility of phosphate in water, how are they going to solve this question? Now the first answer is of course that UPSC has formulated the options in such a way that none of the options contain 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them. And so the job is easy as you have to select only 3 of them. And on the casual reading, you obviously can see that 1, 3, 4 look correct. And of course you have no idea about the second statement. But you know certainly that 1, 3, 4 is correct. Also, if you focus on the second statement, it says all other phosphatic fertilizers. But not stating this as a general rule, but more often than not when UPSC uses such extreme statements, obviously there is a hint over there. And so if you are quite certain because of your presence of mind and application of your knowledge that 1, 3, 4 is correct, go ahead with that. Let us now take a question which was directly from the static portion of NCERT Geography. Consider the following sentences. Statement 1. Jet streams occur in the northern hemisphere only. Statement 2. Only some cyclones develop an eye. Statement 3. The temperature inside the eye of a cyclone is nearly 10 degrees Celsius lesser than that of surroundings. Which of the statements given above are correct? Now if you've read the topics on jet streams as well as the tropical cyclones and extratropical cyclones, you know that statement 1 and statement 3 are straight away wrong because jet streams occur in both northern as well as southern hemisphere. And so the statement itself, the jet stream occur in the northern hemisphere only, is straight away incorrect, and so that leaves out A as well as D. Also statement 3 is incorrect because the eye is the region of the lowest surface pressure and the warmest temperatures inside a cyclone. And so the eye temperature may be 10 degrees Celsius warmer or even more than that as compared to the rest of the area of the cyclone. And so statement 3 is also incorrect. And so that leaves out option B as well. Of course, we have no choice, but we are left with C. Apart from that, if you have to judge this particular statement on its own merit, you can easily understand that there are two kinds of cyclones. Tropical and extratropical cyclone. You know that tropical cyclone has an eye, but extratropical cyclones, which are formed due to the frontal mechanisms, do not have an eye, and so only some cyclones develop an eye, and so the right answer is C, 2 only. And so that is why in our prelims test series, we make sure that the questions on these important static concepts like jet streams, as well as on temperate cyclones and extratropical and tropical cyclones are asked necessarily. And so these are the two examples or demonstrations of questions from our prelims test series 2020. And so here I would like to draw your attention to the explanation of the question which was asked in our prelims test series on jet streams. And if you focus on this particular paragraph, it clearly says jet streams are stronger in winters in the northern and the southern hemispheres because that is when the air temperature differences that drives them tend to be most pronounced. And so clearly you can see that in the question explanation, it is implied that jet streams flow both in northern as well as southern hemisphere. And that is why solving a prelims test series as well as having a look at all the solutions of the questions is a very important part of UPSC. With reference to India's Desert National Park, which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1, it is spread over 2 districts. Statement 2 is, there is no human habitation inside the park. And statement 3 is, it is one of the natural habitats of Great Indian Bustards. Now, whenever questions are asked on some national parks or biodiversity reserves, students are often confused as to how to prepare this important topic for environment section. Because there are around 50 tiger reserves and many more national parks. Now, an interesting fact over here is that the question was asked not because of Desert National Park, but because of Great Indian Bustard. Because if you remember, the 13th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, or acronymed as CMS, concluded in Gandhinagar, which adopted very significant resolutions and decisions to address the conservation needs and threats facing migratory species around the globe. And if you remember, 10 migratory species were added to Global Wildlife Agreement, including Great Indian Bustard. And so information related to Great Indian Bustard with respect to its habitat as well as its conservation status had already become important. So let us now try and solve this question and along the way learn a trick. Let's leave statement 1 for a second because you simply cannot be expected to remember the number of districts a particular national park or tiger reserve is spread. But let's just focus on statement number 2. There is no human habitation inside the park. You should recall that whenever we try to understand a tiger reserve or national park, we always read that there is a core area and then there is a buffer area. And the buffer area is such where the habitation as well as human activity is allowed, especially if it belongs to the local population. And both these core as well as the buffer zone is considered as a part of any national park or tiger reserve. And so we know that statement 2 cannot be correct. Also, there is a fact that whenever such extreme statements are used, you can try to evaluate options rejecting or eliminating this particular option. So we see that option A, option B and option D cannot be the right answer simply because they contain statement 2. Whereas statement 3 is correct because Great Indian Bustard is found in grasslands and desert grasslands. Although their local populations are spread in various semi-arid grasslands location in our country, but it is mainly localized in Thar Desert National Park, and so third statement is correct. So obviously after eliminating the second statement, you are left with only option C, which is the correct answer. With respect to the coverage of this topic in our Daily News Simplified, as you can see on 7th of September 2019, we covered the Great Indian Bustard and many more times thereon. And we also discussed the habitat where we clearly laid down the Desert National Park. As far as coverage in our Prelims Compass and Prelims QIP program is concerned, as you can see in both of them, it was clearly highlighted that Great Indian Bustard is going to be an important topic for Prelims examination, which you have to prepare. Okay, let's take this another very interesting question. What are the advantages of zero tillage in agriculture? So no-till farming or zero tillage or even direct drilling is an agricultural technique for growing crops or pasture without disturbing the soil through tillage. So you don't disrupt the top layer of the soil and directly drill the seed into a very small hole. And so the question was asked, what are the advantages of such a practice? Now, before going into the discussion of this particular question, let us understand the importance of past year question papers in UPSC Prelims examination. And we will start with 2012, that is going back 8 years. Consider the following agricultural practices and you see zero tillage. In the context of global climate change, which of the above helps in carbon sequestration? And of course, zero tillage helps in carbon sequestration because if you don't disturb or disrupt the top layer of the soil, you never allow the soil organic content to come out of it, and so you sequester more and more carbon through zero tillage. Then in 2018, UPSC asked with reference to the circumstances in Indian agriculture, the concept of conservation agriculture assumes significance. Which all the following fall under the conservation agriculture? And then again there you see adoption of minimum tillage. And the same year, another question was asked which again had reference to zero tillage of the land, helping in conservation of agriculture. And statement 1 is sowing of wheat is possible without burning the residue of a previous crop. Now, this is a direct result of a current affairs section. You have seen how crop residue burning in northwestern region of India has created havoc over air pollution in Delhi NCR region. And one of the solutions which has been suggested for this problem was happy seeder. Because happy seeder is one of the unique techniques which is used for sowing seed without any burning of crop residue. And that is one of the advantages of zero till, because you literally do not disturb the surrounding areas and just directly drill a hole in the soil and put the seed inside it. Then the second option is without the need for nursery of rice saplings, direct planting of paddy seeds in the wet soil is possible. Now, most of you who follow agriculture closely must know that as far as rice cultivation is concerned, it is first grown in nursery and then it is roped in the soil, which is flooded with the water. And so, direct seeded rice has received much attention because of its low input demand. It involves sowing pre-germinated seed into wet soil surface. And so, zero tillage can help you in the sense that without the need of nursery, you can directly plant the paddy seeds. So that is also correct. And we have seen how carbon sequestration question was already asked in the past, which was one of the benefits of zero tillage. And so the right answer was D, 1, 2 and 3. So that is why it is very, very important to solve the previous year question papers, because the concepts are often asked on the concepts which have been asked in the past as well. Let us now take next question, which was based on India's National Policy on Biofuels 2018. According to India's National Policy on Biofuels, which of the following can be used as raw materials for the production of biofuels? Cassava, damaged wheat grains, groundnut seeds, horse gram, rotten potatoes and sugar beet. And so in the final options, a various combination of these materials has been given. Now, first question arises as to why was this asked in Prelims 2020? Because the policy was launched back in 2018. And the reason behind that is that although it was launched in 2018, but the vision laid out in this particular policy were being implemented through various decisions of various sectors of our economy throughout 2019 as well as 2020, and so kept on appearing in newspaper again and again. We also had realized the significance of National Policy on Biofuels 2018 for Prelims 2020, and that is why in our PTS 2020, that is Prelims Test Series for 2020 Prelims, we had formulated this particular question, which focused on some of the very important and basic features of the policy. In the explanation of the same question, we had clearly outlined the expansion scope of raw material for ethanol production, and we stated that the policy allows the use of sugarcane juice, sugar containing materials like sweet sorghum, sugar beet, starch containing materials like corn, cassava, damaged food grains like broken rice, wheat, rotten potatoes, which has been declared unfit for human consumption for ethanol production. And so if you see cassava, damaged food grains like wheat grains, rotten potatoes, and sugar beet has been given in the Prelims Test Series question explanation, which makes the right answer as A, 1, 2, 5 and 6 only. So clearly, groundnut seeds and horse gram have not been included as one of the raw materials to be utilized for biofuel production, and so the right answer was obviously A. Moving on to the next question, which is very important from the perspective of Prelims 2021 because it highlights the significance of the static topic as well as the NCERTs. Because the question has been directly asked from the NCERT. The crop is subtropical in nature. A hard frost is injurious to it. It requires at least 210 frost-free days and 50 to 100 centimeter of rainfall for its growth. A light, well-drained soil capable of retaining moisture is ideally suited for the cultivation of the crop. Which one of the following is that crop? Now, this question has a lot of statements, and on the basis of each one of these statements, various options can be eliminated. For example, the first statement, the crop is subtropical in nature, will eliminate jute from all the options because jute is a tropical crop in nature. Then, a hard frost is injurious to all three of them, cotton, sugarcane, as well as tea. Then the next statement, which is about the requirement of the moisture in the soil as well as in the atmosphere, that is 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall for its growth, will eliminate tea from the options. Because if you remember the distribution of tea plantation in India, it is grown in region with more than 150 centimeters of rainfall per annum. Then the next option is regarding the ideally suited soil. And if you have read the NCERT chapter on soil, this particular sentence seems to be a description of black soil, which is a well drained soil capable of retaining moisture. And we know that black soil has both cotton as well as sugarcane. Now, the important part is 210 frost free days. If you remember, the ideal time for the growth of sugarcane is from 12 months to 18 months, which means that around 360 days or more. But here it is clearly written that 210 frost free days, and so the sugarcane is also eliminated, leaving us with the right answer A, that is cotton. And with regard to the coverage of this topic in our Daily News Simplified, as you can see that on DNS dated 18th of April 2019, we covered this topic exactly the way it has been asked. We first discussed the economics of cotton with respect to the production, import and export. Then we went on to discuss the geographical aspect of this particular crop, highlighting that it is a kharif crop, the temperature required, the rainfall required, as well as the ideally suited soil, which is a black soil. Let us now take two questions on important species. One of them is on Indian swamp deer or Barasinga, and the second one is about musk deer. And understand how you can prepare for the upcoming civil services examination, that is Prelim 2021. And if you look at this particular year, three questions have been asked on species. One of them was on Great Indian Bustard, the question which we already discussed, and these two. And the common direction which we are getting from these questions is that these important species with respect to their distribution in India is very, very important. Because if you see, all these three questions are based on where they are found. And so let us now take up this question first. Which one of the following protected areas is well known for the conservation of a subspecies of Indian swamp deer, Barasinga, that thrives well on hard ground and it is exclusively graminivorous? Graminivorous means an animal which feeds on grasses. Now, this information has been given in order to confuse you, because this information is eventually not going to help you in elimination. And so, largely you have to focus on the areas where Barasinga is found in India. And if you remember, in 2017 and 18, Kanha became the first tiger reserve in India to officially introduce a mascot, Bhursing, the Barasinga, to present the hard ground swamp deer as the spirit of the reserve and spread awareness to save it from extinction. Now you might wonder that this particular step taken by Madhya Pradesh government was taken in 2017. But it kept on appearing in newspaper even in 2019 as well. And so you were expected to know about Bhursing the Barasinga, which is the mascot. And so that is why Kanha National Park became famous or well known for the conservation of subspecies of Indian swamp deer, Barasinga. Let's now move on to the next question, which is which of the following are the most likely places to find musk deer in its natural habitat? Now, this I must admit is not a very straightforward question, rather a difficult one, because first and foremost, that distribution of musk deer might be remembered. Musk deer are found in high altitude ecosystems in colder part of Himalayas, but the problem is we might know the location of Gangotri National Park or Manas National Park. After all, they are national parks. But we are not expected to memorize the location of wildlife sanctuaries like Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary, Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary. And so this became a very difficult question. But having this particular information as to musk deer, are known to reside in high altitude ecosystems would mean that it cannot be found in Manas National Park. And so it will clearly lead to the elimination of C and D, leaving us with A and B. We know that Gangotri National Park clearly fits the description. It is situated in middle to upper Himalayas, so it is basically a very cold high altitude ecosystem. And so it left us with two options from which we had to choose one of them. And now here, an important aspect is that the full name of Ascot Wildlife Sanctuary is Ascot Musk Deer Sanctuary. And so it formed the part of right answer, which is A, 1 and 2 only. So, what is the important takeaway as far as the locations of these conservation areas like national park, tiger reserves, and species and their distribution is concerned? What we have to keep in mind for 2021. So, first is that we have to keep track of current affairs, and as and when news item appears, we have to follow them. For example, in this case, Bhur Singh the Barasingha or Ascot Musk Deer Sanctuary, we have to pay a very close attention to them. Then some of the important species, especially Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act species are very very important. And also the Government of India runs species recovery program for some 17 to 18 species. And so we have to learn their distribution in India because 90% of the questions so far have come checking the knowledge of the aspirant with respect to the distribution.